Well, thank you everybody who's able to join us today for the talk Preserving Performance Art Collections, Keeping Karamu House Archives in Cleveland. I feel so excited to have the Karamu House and Case Western Reserve University here today to talk with Andrew as our moderator, and Holly and Kim, thank you so much for all the work you've done in organizing this. So I will pass the reins off onto you guys.
All right, all. Hello. Bill is joining us. He said that he had to install WebEx, so he should be here in a second. But I'll introduce myself first. Maybe I'll give a little time. I'm the preservation officer here at Kelvin Smith Library, Case Western Reserve University. And my purview is really to extend the usable life of all of our physical collections and consider how we translate that into digital and make those things accessible to people now and in the future. And so we were sent this fantastic video from Tony, and we'll play that first for his introduction here. Should give you some background on Karamu House and what they're all about. So if you could make sure that your mics are muted, I think that would help any of the noise distractions, but I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
Not hearing any audio, Andrew.
Sorry about that. I was on mute. We did test this earlier, so it should work now.
We welcome you into sacred space, onto ground that is legendary, into space that summons joy, pride. We welcome you to Karamu House. When segregation ran rampant in our history, we welcome all as freed slaves migrated north. Our home was a place of refuge, founded by the Jelliffs. Rowena and Russell Jelliff set new standards. A Jewish couple with a vision to unite and to uplift. A vision with an unapologetic value of diversity, an unapologetic commitment to excellence in the arts. Welcome to our home, a place that witnessed the lies society tried to push, that African Americans were not enough. A place that witnessed the abuse of African Americans, physically, mentally, and decided to make a difference, to be the difference. A place that decided to take a stand, a place that became a home to cultivate the work of artists, with a special honor to Black artists, the home where Langston Hughes wrote verses and taught poetry, where countless playwrights of the Harlem Renaissance received support and space to develop their artistry. Shirley Graham, Conrad Sealer, Andrew M. Burris, Willis Richardson, and Zora Neale Hurston works were advocated for and produced with excellence. This is a place of inclusion, a place in which the halls were graced by Martin Luther King Jr., where the largest number of buses left Ohio to attend the March on Washington, where Rosa Parks spoke, a place for collaboration, a place that is firm in its integrity. This is Karamu House. Karamu, a Swahili word, meaning a joyful place of gathering. We are a place of joy, where stories and dance, music and art are shared with quality and shared to make impact. Where programming, education, performances unite, showing the beauty in all of us, the talent in all of us, the value in all of us. For 105 years, we have been here in Cleveland, Ohio, where names known and unknown, young and old, have left marks that will never fade. Vanessa Bell Calloway, Ruby D, Imani Hakeem, Langston Hughes, and James Pickens Jr., and countless others. The place that is for you, for me, for all. Welcome to the legendary Karamu House.
All right. Well, certainly legendary. And thank you for sending that video. Really wonderful. Looks like we have Bill here now. If you wouldn't mind giving a short introduction, Bill, what you do here at Case.
Absolutely. So I'm the head of special collections and archives for Kelvin Smith Library. And our small and mighty team oversees all of the work of collecting and organizing and arranging and most importantly for this audience, caring for all of the collections that fall under our purview. So I'm really excited to be here today. Along with Raquel and Tony to talk about this project that we're working on together with them and all the kind folks at Karamu.
Yeah, it's really great. This whole collaborative effort, and here at OPC, we're really interested about a lot of the considerations that were taken into account before this decision was made. So we can start off kind of, I guess the video really did a good introduction about Karamu House and its mission and what it's all about. But if you wanted to speak on any of the other of those aspects, Tony.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me here to kind of share thoughts about Karamu House. So OPC, thank you a million, and it's great. It's great to be in partnership with the Kelvin Smith Library at Case Western Reserve University. Karamu's mission is to produce professional theater, provide arts education, and present community programs for all people while honoring the Black experience. And so, at the point that I got here, this current administration arrived in October of 2015. We were learning so much about the institution, what the institutional needs were. And I would get these phone calls from random people saying, my mother was in Kiss Me Kate in 1971. I would like a photo because it's her 95th birthday. Can you give me this? And I would, a people pleaser and a newcomer in my role, I would run down the hall and ask a colleague, can we look and find things? And so we began to find things, but never the things that we were looking for. And so what rose to the top was that we needed to make our archives and the preservation of our archives and organizing it a priority, because with organizations such as Karamu House and nonprofits, your archives don't rise to the top as strategic priorities when you're trying to lead the charge of the most dramatic turnaround strategy in the history of being a 100-year organization. But I knew that the archives and their preservation and organization of those would be important to further engage the community, to be responsive to the community. So I know I kind of jumped ahead in the questioning, but I want to just kind of offer a context by which what triggered this for me saying we've got to do something and I've got to make it important, because if I don't, I question who will.
Yeah, no, very good. So can you speak to maybe what are the primary contents of the archive, like photos, documents, what have you?
So you said it, Andrew, it's primarily photos, programs from productions, institutional records, and some media things. We got a couple of gems that we are really proud of. And there are some letters between Langston Hughes and Rowena Jelliff. And of course, Mrs. Jelliff was one of the founders of Karamu House. And so they really nurtured Langston as a high schooler because his parents had left Cleveland and gone on to Chicago. And so they kind of became his kind of godparents as he matriculated through Central High School in Cleveland. And then when he had gone on to New York, he would come back frequently. When Karamu was having a capital campaign back in the 40s, these letters kind of talk about Langston's work in supporting the capital campaign, some of the things that he was doing, trying to connect some A-list folks to the institution to kind of get further investment. And so those are the kinds of things that we have in our collection. In addition to that, one day when I was going on a wild goose chase looking for some information for some caller, Mrs. Bailey, who had worked at Karamu for about 40 years, handed me this box. And in this box was this guest book. Well, then I began to thumb through the guest book and I see Dr. Martin Luther King's signature in this guest book. Then right under Dr. King's signature is Frances Bolton. And of course, Frances Bolton was the first woman elected to Congress from the state of Ohio. So I was like, this was an important day. So I went to thumb through the balance of the guest book and I realized that every continent on this planet was represented in that guest book with the exception of Antarctica. And I don't think anybody lives there. So I'm gonna say everybody's present. There's representation everywhere. And so once I found the guest book, that was really the thing that let me know we were onto something and that we really did need to take this up to the next level. And Andrew, I'd say this before I forget, but this project coming to fruition really happened and began to happen once Raquel got involved. She started as a consultant, then moved on over to an administrative manager. And I'd given her this project along with all the other 20,000. And she embraced this and has really been the liaison and the partner with whether it was Cleveland Public Library or our friends at Summer on the Cuyahoga with Smith College, has really been able to work, and you all at the library, Kelvin Smith Library, has really been the person who has helped actualize the vision of bringing this to fruition.
Yeah, that's really amazing. Both of you, congratulations on finding all of this stuff and recognizing its value and kind of imagining how it would be used in the future. So I'm guessing, you envision this collection being utilized in like research and teaching, and what other sorts of use cases could you see for what you've given us?
Well, research and teaching and further connecting us to other institutions that have Karamu archives. I think the more and more that we get on the virtual platform, we are digitized and people have access, we learn so much more about other pieces and parts of Karamu history and where they are. In the last 6 years, as of October, 6 years, people are always wanting to call and interview us about, the history of Karamu. So we really want this to be accessible in a way that researchers really can take a deep dive into Karamu's history, our content, and for us to support in directing them to other institutions that may have Karamu archives and memorabilia.
Yeah, so there are parts of the collection at different collecting institutions around, and I'm wondering if you could talk about like why different institutions were chosen. I mean, I'm sure some of it was legacy decisions, but kind of how do you see maybe connecting all of those resources in a digital way so that there's maybe one Karamu archive site location and then it can go out to each of these institutions?
Well, I have to say, it's been an interesting dance responding to all of those others who wanted this collection, wanted the Karamu collection. And so, yeah, I'm gonna put that in the parking lot for right now. But to answer your question, I think that the Western Reserve Historical Society, AKA the Cleveland History Center, have the Russell and Rowena papers under their name. So it's not listed under Karamu House is listed under Russell and Rowena Jelliff. In addition to that, of course, they were the founders. And then there's Reuben and Dorothy Silver. And Reuben and Dorothy Silver really came to Karamu House in the 50s, if I'm not mistaken. And they were very instrumental in professionalizing the institution from a theatrical perspective, because both Reuben and Dorothy were professional directors and artists and actors, and they were here a little over 20 years. So their papers and collection is at the Western Reserve Historical Society, as long as some Karamu photos. Cleveland State, and again, these are, they made their own individual choices about where they wanted their papers to go. Then there's a photo collection at Cleveland State that's a part of the Cleveland Memory Project. And so that's a kind of database of information around Cleveland history. In addition to that, we found that there's some part of the collection at Oberlin College and at Atlanta University and at Emory College. And at Emory College, it's primarily, if I'm not mistaken, visual arts work, and Russell Atkins, who was a collector, and an instructor at Atlanta University. A part of his work is there. So I think for us at this time, you know, would we want one repository for all of the Karamu collection? Sure. But I think what's most important for us at this juncture is to be able to have, well, all of the information as a Karamu as a repository, to be able to guide and direct people to the other collections where information is, of course, in partnership with Kelvin Smith Library.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome.
So Bill, perhaps you could speak on what your role in this process was and how you convinced them to kind of trust us with this extremely important body of work in their archive.
Sure. I'll latch on to the tail end of the last question too, and just talk about this archival diaspora situation, which is not unique to Karamu House. It happens with all kinds of archival collections that they end up being scattered around. And I'm really hopeful that the work that we do at Kelvin Smith Library can help as we process and describe and move this collection into the digital realm, that we can help address some of those things that Tony was talking about in terms of other collections that speak to it. And also, the other thing I was thinking about in terms of a scattered collection is the idea that there may be parts of Karamu archival history that are not in institutional homes. So I think anything that we can do to help people be aware of the various homes of this scattered collection can be a good thing. And we certainly hope and plan to use our work to kind of reach hands across water, so to speak, and make it easier for alumni, of the alumni of the Karamu program, neighborhood folks, researchers, scholars. We hope to make it easier for folks like that to know about the collection and use it. In terms of our partnership with Karamu, it was a little over a year ago that we really began having conversations with Tony and Raquel and all of the other folks at Karamu about the potential here. I liked that there was a little cameo of Kelvin Smith Library's own Gail Reese in that little video. Gail is a longtime employee here at the library, retired last year, but she's also a very active volunteer at Karamu, and I like to think that that Gail played a role in getting us together at the table. The table, of course, was a table like this. I think our first meetings were all on the screen. with us talking at each other on a screen from a lot of different places around town and around the world, probably. But we had some really nice discussions and conversations, and honestly, a lot of the questions that Tony and Raquel had for us really focused on the care that we would give to this collection in terms of preservation, in terms of making sure that this collection would be in a safe place, in a climate controlled place, that the use of the collection would be monitored and done carefully. And so many of the questions that Raquel and Tony peppered us with were related to those issues. And I think for folks on OPC, you wouldn't be surprised by that. And anytime that somebody comes with us with the potential donation, that's front and center. And so we spent a lot of time talking with them about our facility, about our services, about the way we provide access to collections that come to us. I think, based on the ultimate positive outcome of the partnership, I think they were pleased with what they heard and saw. But that was definitely one of the big questions. I think the other things that we talked about were related to the services that we provide our staff. The fact that we have Andrew as our preservation officer, that we have Nora Blackman as our processing archivist, overseeing all the work at a very high level. And also that we have collections like the Cleveland Playhouse Archive that sort of has a lot of common ground with the Karamu Archive. So I think all of those things, came into the conversation about what we could provide in terms of a home for the archive.
Yeah, thank you. So, excuse me. As Karamu continues to exist, do you see the current, as the records continue to be created, do you see a deposit schedule or continuation of deposit at case, or is there anything laid out for the future of the created things that will come out of it?
Yeah, I'm going to give Raquel an opportunity to respond to what we've been talking about in that space in terms of timing and process. So Raquel.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. Yes, we will be meeting with, we'll stay connected with CASE, certainly in the shorter term, but annually we will be catching up and providing any updated discovered files, as well as those that are being produced currently, over these last few years and into the future. So we don't expect kind of an evergreen archive donation, I think is maybe the best way that we can describe it.
I'll just add a quick note that, with most of our institutional donors, that is usually the case where, we touch base annually. We have a sort of a rolling window. I don't think we've done anything formal on that, Raquel, but that's certainly been part of the conversation. I'll also add that we are also, as part of our agreement, we're also archiving Karamu House's website. So that becomes part of our archival holdings using Archivit.
Yeah, Andrew, I'd like to go back to something a little earlier as well, just to kind of give a nod to it. And that was working with the library. I feel like having the wide range of leadership be available in the early conversations was really showed that there was a true interest, and the consistent follow-up and follow through really made us much more comfortable with as we move closer to the library saying that they were truly interested in our collection. In addition to that, the fact that, and Bill mentioned this earlier, you know, the Cleveland Playhouse is the oldest regional theater in the country, and Karamu House is the oldest Black producing theater in the country, and we're both 106 years old. So knowing that Cleveland's treasure, Karamu, would really be a nice, Karamu's collection would be a complementary to the Cleveland Playhouse collection, and speaking to American theater, I think really made it that much more attractive for us to say that Kelvin Smith Library would be a great place for our archives.
Thank you. Yeah, we've really been beefing up our performance art and theater collections here. It's really a burgeoning area, I think, in our institution, and it's just amazing the things that you have given us to expand on that. It's fantastic. So I'm going to skip over one of these, but since this is the preservation audience, so how, you know, we have the facility here, we have me. So what other kinds of preservation considerations were there? You know, were there specific items of concern? Were there things that, you know, really needed to be addressed immediately, or like what, if you could speak to our audience about that, that'd be great.
All right. You know, I was just concerned. We're in a 70-plus-year-old building. We didn't have temperature control or light control. We had some of our file cabinets were fireproof, but you know, we were just at risk of having 106 years of history lost if there were some kind of fire, flood, or some unforeseen situation that happened here. So that was one of the #1 reasons why we wanted to, you know, move the archives to a safe and secure location. Well, and as I finished that sentence, what was the question? The complete question flew out of my brain. That's the
Just
over 50 thing.
what kind of preservation concerns played into the decision to
Preservation concerns. So those that I just mentioned. And so in addition to that, those letters, once we found those letters from Rowena, between Rowena and Langston, we knew that we had to get them to a safe and secure place. In addition to that, that guest book, you know, we've had people to say you should put the guest book on auction. You know, they're members of the Duke Ellington Orchestra that are listed in the that guest book. So we knew that we wanted to make sure that we were preserving Karamu's history, and those things needed to go into a place. And we're not the content experts. That's the other piece. We knew that we needed to get it assessed and viewed, and we were working with the Cleveland Public Library. I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge their support of us being prepared to have our conversation with the Kelvin Smith Library, because they were very supportive in helping us understand what to purge, what not to purge, how to organize things so that someone could come in and better assess what we had. So we just knew that we needed to get these things to a safe and secure location, and the investment at Karamu House to do that was cost prohibitive.
Andrew, if I could say something just for a moment. Tony, thank you. The one other piece that's important to note is that there were several partners throughout the city and nationally that did, through Cleveland Public Library's leadership and guidance to these institutions, we were able to connect with them. And I just wanted to give a little shout out to Holly Witchery over at ICA and others. John Carroll, the Broadcast and Media Archive over there. Several people were very helpful over these last several years in looking at items, helping us understand preservation and restoration needs or concerns to look for. Those individuals and organizations came into Karamu before the pandemic over the years and helped us really understand some of those concerns that Tony talked about: temperature control, lighting control, everything from like make sure there's no bugs in the room. So, you know, like in a building that there is no air conditioning, discussing putting a fan on without a window open was a really important thing that we might not have necessarily understood, being that we were not experts. So I do appreciate, and I know the institution appreciates the warm support and guidance from several institutions that did feel like we would be doing pocket work with many different organizations in town. And Case really brought, you know, in a virtual way, we were trusting what they were saying because we couldn't get into the library prior to the decision. But it really helped us understand that it seemed that they had pretty much all of the buckets somewhat filled, or relationships to help support that. So thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. So I guess I'm gonna combine these last two into so we can have a little time for Q&A if we have any. So how does Case and Kelvin Smith Library plan to support and promote this collection partnership to diverse audiences now and in the future? That's to Bill mostly.
That sounds like me. Well, you know, we started planning to address that very question even before we had packed the boxes and brought them over the short drive from Karamu to the Kelvin Smith Library. And you know that it goes from sort of just nuts and bolts things. You know, we have a timeline for processing the collection. We have that put together. We are, because of the great publicity that this partnership brought about, we've already got several reference requests from scholars and other interested folks. So, you know, we need to really kind of be ready to even provide reference support from this collection, even though it's not even processed yet, not fully processed yet, I should say. So, you know, we have a timeline for that. I think as we work on the processing of the collection, we're going to get a much clearer idea of kind of priorities in terms of digitization. And so, you know, we're going to need to start folding that into our workflows. So some of it is you know, reasonably nuts and bolts, like that kind of planning stuff. And then some of our plans are maybe a little more, you know, kind of asking the what if questions. So you know, one of those we've already met with Raquel and the folks from Summer on the Cuyahoga, you know, the potential of continuing that partnership. You know, they've had a great series of summer college students in that program working with the collection, and so we hope to continue that. You know, there are plenty of ideas of connecting with academic departments here on our campus, the theater department, the history department, the English department, through the Baker Nord Center for the Humanities, potentially. You know, there's all kinds of potential ways that we can both make this collection a way for folks to learn about Karamu and Cleveland history, but also, you know, kind of, you know, ensure that that the collection is described properly, and that we're taking care of it in the way that we've promised that we would. So, you know, there are this collection is definitely front and center. We're adding to our staff in the coming months, so that we can, you know, be at a staff level where we can really do justice to the collection, and so on. So, you know, I think it's really galvanized some of those ideas about ways that we can reach out on campus, across town, and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. That all sounds great. And yeah, I mean, this collection's so important. Like, it really could have gone to a number of different places, and it's really something that it was decided to be kept in Cleveland. You know, maintaining that local history and care. You know, it's really great, and I thank you for that. So I think I'm going to open it up now for Q&A, if that's okay, unless anybody else has anything they want to speak on. You feel free to drop any questions in the chat or come off mute and ask away.
Other than the website, are there other digital objects in the collection?
I don't believe so. Raquel can probably correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the website is the only born digital asset at this point.
So as far as Born Digital, you're correct, Bill. We did, through the SOTC program and through our own efforts of venturing through digitization and what our future needs would be, we were able to digitize quite a large collection of things, mostly in our production files, as well as some of our photographs. The one piece that was lacking in that digitization is that the equipment that we have goes to 600 DPI, and in most cases for high resolution digitization platforms that did not meet the standards of need. So they're digitized and available for an internal resource, but probably not significant enough to just be uploaded to a digital space.
Thanks. We have a question from Jim in the chat. What is the size of the collection?
So we estimated when we were planning to box and move the collection. Our crack archivist Nora did all of she and I did all the measurements, and we estimated it as being 100 record center boxes. And we came and we brought 100 boxes with us, and I think we filled 97 of them. And so we were pretty darn close with our estimate. So it's roughly 100 record center boxes.
And just to mention, those are the items that are in the gifted collection. Karamu does still hold the objects and special collections or personal special collections within the institution. So we have probably about the same amount of square footage in like visual art and objects here at Karamu.
Raquel, do you think you could speak a little more on what those are, the objects and visual arts that are still there?
Sure. So different from our production series within the archive, which was very well arranged over these last several years. The rest of our archive, being things over at CASE as well as here, including the objects, are undiscovered at this moment. I can tell you that a lot of it is ceramics. Karamu did have an active working ceramics studio. There's many sculpture, I'll say probably 6 sculpture, like bust sculptures. There's some visual art, some print work from WPA artists that were here at Karamu and other institutions in the city during that time. We also have the Carl Stokes personal memorabilia collection that was gifted to us prior to his passing. And so we will remain stewards of those.
That's fascinating. We got a question from Jamie in the chat. Has this partnership created connections to other allied organizations around the city with other related materials, and how will those relationships be fostered?
I would say that what it's triggered is more conversation about better understanding the importance of getting archives to a safe space. Because we've received a number of phone calls, people just questioning uh, why Case and why did Karamu gift these things to anyone, not just Case, but anyone. So really, what it's done is given us an opportunity to further educate the community about what the importance of a safe space in terms of organized archives and having content experts to be able to lead the charge in preservation of our history. In addition to that, better communicating to the community why we chose to keep it here in Cleveland. And that talking about the Cleveland Playhouse collection being a case, really then further people understood that this was just not, this was a strategic and very intentional decision to move what we've moved over and gifted to the Kelvin Smith Library.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense that would happen. Another question in the chat: if items receive interventive conservation treatment in the future, will there be a dialogue with Karamu House for the treatment decisions?
I can speak to that, I guess. We plan on having continuing dialogue with Karamu about a lot of things, and I think in most cases, well, I'll give an example. There was a small portion of the production files that we moved that had some smoke damage from years and years ago. And the Raquel and the folks at Karamu knew about this and pointed it out to us, in fact, as we were boxing. So, you know, that's an example where those records are now at Kelvin Smith Library. I think Andrew's already even looked at them. So, you know, that's a situation where, you know, they're trusting us to use our professional skills and staffing and service levels to take care of those things. If there's something that's higher profile that we didn't know about, you know, that certainly may become a conversation. But I think you know, my feeling is that was part of the trust that Tony and the board felt that they could put in us to kind of take care of that, take care of a lot of those issues.
Yeah, I know that that guest book is really important, and I know that there's a project on the horizon for that. So yeah, I feel like, you know, stuff like that for sure is something that we as preservation professionals are really looking more toward, is having these dialogues with the stakeholders, with people who know their own materials and kind of can give input about what might, you know, be done with them in contrast to what we might think would be done for them. So yeah, that's a really good question, Ashley. Thanks for asking that. If there's any more questions, speak now. Otherwise, I think we're at a good place. This was a wonderful conversation. Thank you both so much. Thank you, all three of you, so much for joining us for this. And if there's no other questions, not seeing any coming through the chat.
Thank you for having us.
It was a great opportunity to talk to the folks from in OPC. It was. I'm glad we had this opportunity.
Yeah, all of Ohio was excited about this. So.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks so much, all.